Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining me again for this episode of Compassion and Courage. And I wanted to share with you that this is the second part of a two-part series that Marveline and I did on self-sabotage. I hope if you haven't heard the first episode, go back a couple and find the episode that we first started talking about, and then enjoy this second part of talk on self-sabotage. What
Right.
comes next? Yeah.
The next one that comes, this one I don't struggle with a lot, but I don't think I do. We call it the rebel. And that's someone who you just don't like somebody telling you what to do. And I'm not going to mention who, but we have someone in our family, and it's not you, and I'm going to tell you it is a child who I'm telling you she was born going, I want to. It just is a natural personality for her to not enjoy being told what to do. And you know what? Of course, she's matured out, but there's this little, you feel a little bristling. And if you don't like being told what to do, just period, it doesn't matter if it's what you were going to do anyway, you just don't like it. That can cause you some problems. You want your freedom. You don't struggle with this a whole lot, do you?
I don't think so. I typically color within the lines. I don't have to be a rebel just for rebels being the sake of a rebel. But there are times I think that I do stand up against what I think are untruths or injustices. Uh, but I don't even consider that rebel behavior. I consider that just uh, righteous work.
And well, you know where this will really show up, I think, in interpersonal relationships, because that's where we're the most, what do you mean you're telling me I do that? I don't do that. You know, we just kind of defend ourselves before we listen and go, huh, I wonder if that's accurate. So, and of course we know curiosity wins the day. But if you just naturally, it's hard for you to be told what to do. Clearly, that's going to affect what kind of employee you are, maybe what kind of boss you are too. So I'm going to give you a couple of tips if you recognize that in yourself, and it would be brutally honest to admit, you know what? The truth is, I just don't like being told I have to do that. One of the things you can do is find a way to maintain a space and time for your straight up independence, following that muse, doing what you want when you want it, and know that I have other times where I am playing in the guidelines. And like you said about you, this is, I am, if the teacher said, jump 5 feet, I'm going to kill myself trying to jump 5 feet. Whereas other kids will go, why? You know, not me. I'm definitely a rule follower too.
And not 5'1", and not 4'11", not 4'11 and a half, but five
I'm
on the nose.
exactly on the nose when it's completely impossible. I will kill myself trying. Side me. If you recognize this in yourself and you are able to look in the mirror and go, that's true. I really just don't like being told what to do. It's okay. Sometimes that's good, because if you're being told to do something inappropriate or wrong, there's a time to pull that out. Again, all these behaviors aren't inherently bad. It's being able to use them and understand them and recognize them and be sure you're pulling them out at the correct time. So if this is you want to start working on it, start trying to bide up your life when I'm in this time, or maybe on my days off. I just follow my muse. I do what I want. Nobody has to tell me what to do. But other times, I'm going to separate that and know, here, if I'm told to do something, even if I think, well, that's redundant, I don't need to do that. If it needs to be done, you do it. And that you save that rebel for when it really is important. Sound good?
Bring it out when it's the appropriate time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about the imposter. Now, when you hear imposter, what do you think of first?
Me. That's what I think of because I am like a lot of people, um, and maybe even, dare I say, high achieving people who feels like, well, yeah, I did that, but that's not really me. I'm being an imposter. When I stand up in front of a group of professionals who have been practicing medicine for 20, 30, 40 years, I feel a little bit like an imposter because I am not a doc. I am not, I don't have that kind of tenure in healthcare. And I start to feel a little bit like, well, maybe the things that I have accomplished don't really matter. Those aren't really me. That imposter, that idea of the imposter syndrome, is something that I think many, many people deal with, and especially people who have, who are very striving and organized and successful people still deal with feeling like an imposter.
Well, I'm honestly, you saying me was not the answer I expected. So
Who did you think I would say?
well, I thought you'd say imposter syndrome because we've all heard of that. But it is, it's the sister to that. And that's just, I know this about you. I just didn't expect you to say that. So imposter, because you're not. Now, if you were up trying to teach heart surgery, you would definitely be an imposter. I play one on TV, right? Um, but it just means it's a form of self sabotage, and you feel like you're a fraud. And usually that comes from an internalized self doubt, and it will lead you to actually undermine your own achievements. You achieve, it doesn't stop that necessarily, but you undermine yourself when you do this. So,
Mm-hmm.
how do you know? Um, you avoid taking risks, and you fear eventually somebody's going to peek in and go, you're not as good at that as you think you are, or as the world thinks you are. And that all falls on the imposter syndrome scale. And definitely it sabotages yourself. So, what do you do if you're hearing yourself and you're recognizing this? Again, if it's become your main go-to and you live there, please get some counseling. We're going to keep repeating that because we all need somebody to help us once we've developed some bad habits that we use for protection, for all the ways we use them. Still, if they're sabotaging us, we need to find a different way. So, I'm going to tell you a couple things you can do. Um, Acknowledge that skill and hard work have gotten you where you are. Just acknowledge it to yourself when it's accurate and true. And maybe even journal and write it down. And we use this a lot in narrative nursing, and narrative medicine. Write down things. A good day that you had, nice things people said about you, when you really did something, man, and you got that right. Your boss gave you an excellent review. Save those things. Save a thank you note so that when you're feeling I'm an absolute failure, I'm worthless, you can go back through that and read it and try to focus on that's not all I am. Even if I actually did mess up, it's not all I am.
I like it.
Okay.
I like it.
Now, this next one you alluded to earlier. And again, it's one of those that hit me in the heart because I fall into this so often. And that is overthinking, which you're prone to overthinking from time to time. All of us are sometimes. But things can stay into self sabotage territory if we are constantly weighing up options, and it actually prevents you from moving forward. So you can sit And I always like to see the whole view before I make a decision, see all the sides. Um, Tell me how annoying that is, Marcus Engel.
um, I don't think that the seeing all sides is annoying. Sometimes the indecisiveness is a bit to swallow, and we can get caught up in what we call analyzation paralyzation, where we are so struck by thinking about the issue that we never actually complete the issue. We never we're stuck on the project so much analyzing it that we never actually make a step to try to solve said project or issue, and that can be really difficult to deal with on a personal level. And I think interpersonally and in relationships and in job situations, that can also be uh, difficult, because sometimes it might feel like the teammate is not pulling all of the weight that they should. So it's it's one of those things where it's hard to say, because we think overthinking, well, what qualifies as overthinking, right? Uh, to me, where it qualifies as overthinking is when a decision can't be made and progress can't be put forward. But thinking and even overthinking is something that I actually value in people. People who can sit down and look at all sides of an issue instead of their very narrow focus. And so it's hard to think that overthinking is the worst thing in the world, whenever I truly love people who can philosophize and sit down and talk about different perspectives. I mean, that's part of what we do on this podcast, is talk about different perspectives. So overthinking can, though, be a method of self-sabotage. So don't get stuck in that analysis paralysis.
Absolutely. And that's like we said, remember, each of these things isn't innately, exclusively bad. It's knowing when to have that. And there are times you have to think on your feet and make a decision. And one of my favorite things about you is you take in information. There's no doubt about that. But you make a decision. When I say I have to see all sides, I never stop seeing sides. It's not like a circle, it's like a prism. And I'll go from, oh, maybe this, maybe that. Well, what if this? And a little bit of that, I can overthink that way. And if you find yourself agonizing over decisions to the point, I mean, it's an extended period, then you second guess your decision once you've made it. Then the worst part is you ruminate over the decision that you made and think, oh, but I could have done this. And that's the people, I'm going to say guilty at times, where I will wake up at 2 a.m. going, oh, I forgot to think about this one option. I didn't check that. I didn't do this. And it's painful. It's not healthy. It's not good for us. Thinking and not knee jerking all the time is good. Being totally inequipped to make a decision is wrong, is not healthy for your life. So, again, get a coach, get a therapist, find someone that will help you work it out to find that healthy balance of thinking it correctly, thinking it through, making a decision, and being able to make the fast decision when a fast decision is what is actually required, and letting it go after you make it. Going, I made it. I did the best I could at that time, and I'm moving forward now. Which kind of leads us to the last self sabotaging behavior we're going to talk about, and that is called the martyr. And
Mm.
this is one that it's very easy to spot in other people, right? Super easy. The martyr always puts the needs of others before themselves. which we find a lot of in healthcare because you're very giving, loving people. When you are drawn to a career like that, it can be an admirable trait. Um, but when you take that and you neglect your own well being, number one, please don't neglect your own well being. We can't stress that enough. And you know it, you hear it all the time, but please put that into practice. Your own well being helps everyone around you. And you actually can harm the people you're trying to help if you're overly in this martyr type mentality, because you keep them from having to grow up or deal with their own issues. You're not helping them, you're just taking it over and doing it for them. So, uh, martyr, how do you know if this is you? You feel like taking time for yourself is bad or selfish. You don't want to pursue your own goals if it costs somebody else something. Again, these sound like good things, but you feel you put it in the context of I'm selfish if I go take this yoga class 2 mornings a week because it's good for my body.
And at an extreme angle, it could be I feel selfish for even taking care of my own health and putting my own health needs before those of others.
Absolutely.
Again, we can't operate if we're not running on all cylinders.
Correct.
And if we can't take good care of ourselves, I think we were talking this week about a case where a woman said, "I'm just doing too much. I can't miss the kids' soccer games, so I can't go get my annual mammogram." And the other friend that she was talking to took her by the hand and said, "We're going to make an appointment right now." And I think that's the kind of advocacy that we need to see in certain relationships. But we cannot be a martyr to the extent of harming our own selves. That is whenever it is tipped to an unhealthy perspective.
Correct. If it feels selfish to take care of your basic needs, now obviously there are emergencies in life. You know, your
They happen.
grandpa has a stroke and you are the one who has to care for him for a moment, for a period of time. Things happen. Your kid gets hurt, they're in the ER. You're going to run and take care of that. And that's all you're going to think about, probably to your detriment because you're not going to leave the hospital. Um, but you have to let those be confined to real emergencies. And you have to not feel guilty when you take care of yourself, because that guilt actually leads to resentment.
Mm.
The fact that you no longer are caring for yourself, you become resentful at the people that you've been trying to help, you've invested so much in. And then it's super easy for this to slip into an identity. And once it becomes your identity that you're the martyr, you're the one who always takes care of everybody else and no one takes care of you, you're massively self sabotaging your relationships. Obviously, we talked about your health, your mental health, physical health, and your success in life and your enjoyment in life, because it's easy to slip into any of these, and go too far.
It's such um, a sharp edge. Is that the word I'm looking for? Fine edge sword, something like that. Because there are a certain group of people in this world that their superpower is helping others. And we never want to discourage that, because if you're that's your superpower, then by all means do it. You wouldn't be fulfilled if you weren't doing it. But having that healthy boundary within oneself to recognize when I start to feel poorly about myself because I'm taking care of everybody else, and I start to feel like, well, nobody takes care of me. That is where the part that comes in that's detrimental to your mental and your physical health.
And your relationships, it all goes together.
Yeah.
Just like we said at the beginning, what does self sabotage do? First, it hurts your mental health, hurts your physical health, hurts your relationships, hurts your career, and hurts your ability to actually care for the people you love that you want to care for. Plus, if it's your career, you can't take as good of care of the people that you're supposed to be caring for because you've picked up one of these behaviors somewhere along your life. And again, I'm guilty of all of them at different points. You pick them up, but you let them become the seat you always respond from instead of being able to use it appropriately, but not let it damage yourself. And we don't want to see any of you sabotage yourself because you wouldn't be listening to this podcast if you weren't someone who cared about other people.
And we care about you, faithful listeners. We care that you've taken the time to spend with us today talking over what self sabotage is and maybe recognizing some of these behaviors in yourself. And we want to thank you for taking the time out of your day. Hope you find value in these conversations. And we want to encourage you to visit marcusengel.com for healthcare consulting, for keynote speaking, for books and coaching. Look through all of those things on marcusengel.com. Marlene, thank you again for being with me. I love you very much. And
Thank
we
you.
will see everybody next time on the next episode of Compassion and Courage.
Thanks for spending this time with us.